Join us on this week's WRRAP podcast, where we'll be discussing Scarlet's performance on the weekend. We'll be having a little chat about international rugby, and no doubt we'll be having a look at what the future holds for Welsh rugby, rugby in general, and will we actually get a summer off? We can live it. Pod. Welcome back to this week's WRRAP podcast with me, Lee G. Joining me is the new crew. This is the new crew now. So Dan, Nick, and Harley. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening, gents.
How's it going?
So there was a moment earlier today where I thought Jamie was going to go, "Oh, I'll just come and do the news desk later. I'll just chip in and do this. I'll just chip in and do that." But no, Dan is here now, and Dan is the man now. So yeah, let's start with the basics then. Nick, news desk is all yours, my friend.
Well, I did think I was going to have a very easy task, and then all of a sudden today the news has come thick and fast. Start with perhaps what I consider one of the best number 8s ever in Welsh history. Despite speculation to the contrary, Talupe Faletau, 34, is staying at Cardiff. Talupe's had 108 Welsh caps and 5 for the Lions. As I say, I think really good news. Cardiff have also re-signed Rory Jennings, who joined them last season. Has been a decent acquisition. Featured in 17 matches and had 8 starts this season. And to finish with the news from CF10, they've also announced today the signing of not 1, but 2 international tight head props. Welsh international Sam Wainwright, 27, has featured in 17 games for the Scarlets this season, mainly off the bench, is joining them. And another former Scarlet prop is joining them too. Haven Sebastian, 30, who in his absence in the 2 years up in Edinburgh has been capped by Scotland, but is returning back to Wales. So Harley, decent bit of recruitment there, bit of activity.
I mean, I think re-signing Faletau absolutely is. I'd say that's a bonus. I mean, that's like cherry on top of the cake. For me, if we had to let one of him or Adams go, I'd have rather Adams. But I mean, Faletau's cost. I mean, it has led to possibility we're going to lose Mackenzie Martin, or nothing's been confirmed yet, which is a shame. Roy Jennings, the way Jockey wants to play is central around having a ball playing 12. So having someone who can step into that Ben Thomas role if he has to go into 10, is injured or with international duty, great. He's been absolutely great for us. He's not going to set the world alight, but he does the job. And then as the 2 tight heads, we lost Reece Littrick, which is a big blow, and we were probably a little bit light on tight head last season. So getting 2 in is fine. I mean, if I was given, the mega bucks that some Welsh fans have been saying we've got access to, now we're owned by the WRU, they're probably not the 2 I'd have signed. I was thinking more along the lines, saying that along the lines of a Malherbe or a Dutoy, if I was going to sign an international quality prop. But they're fine, they fill in the books. I don't think they're coming in as number 1. I think they're going to be fighting for the 2nd and 3rd position. But he's good enough. It's bodies in training. It's someone to come off the bench because bless Azza, you can't do it all.
Yeah, and also
Nick is sitting there looking at you, Harley, going like, "You slimy bastard! You're getting all of these signings," and Nick's sitting there going like, "Signings."
What
signings? Any signings? Anybody? Has anyone seen anyone?
Hang on, I thought the Osprey. I mean, according to when Toby was there, the Ospreys were the best at signing local talent. By which I mean getting guys from Bristol, or Scarlets,
or from Scarlets. Yeah. Sorry, Nick. Go on, mate.
All of those. That's all in the past. We don't sign players anymore.
No, you just loan them from the Cheetahs.
Yeah. Okay, down the M4, the Dragons have announced young hooker Sam Scarf, 21, has been given a contract after being developed through their academy system. The Penalla product has featured heavily for Pontypool in Super Rugby Cymru, and I think is a player of a lot of promise. And today, the Dragons have also announced the signing of 30-year-old centre Fetuli Peau, and he's joining from Zebra. The Tongan international has featured in 20 matches this season for the Italian team after spending 2 seasons there. And before that, played regularly for the Highlanders in New Zealand in Super Rugby. So going away from trend, he seems to be able to stay fit and looks a powerful and dynamic player, Dan.
Yeah, I was pleased when I saw this signing earlier on today. I thought that was a step in the right direction. We needed a 13 at the club. He's clearly got a lot of experience playing there. He's got previous Super Rugby experience as well, the Crusaders, I believe. Just having a quick look through his stats before we came on, I think he's started 12 out of 14 games in the URC this season. Has carried the ball 45 times successfully out of 90 odd carries. So he's made 90 odd carries, 45 of those he's over the gain line every time. And I think that's what the Dragons need. Struggle with a bit of gain line this year, haven't we? So I think that's a good sign in Mr. Westwood's earning his paycheck down there nicely, I would have thought. I think that takes us up to 9 or 10 newcomers now. I want to say 9. I don't think we're quite into double figures yet. And having listened to the Dragons Lair podcast, according to Mr. Buttress, there may be a couple more coming in. So there's no doubt about it. You stick those 9 signings into our match day 23, it's a different animal now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So starting to look okay down at Rodney Parade.
Good. Good.
As a coach, Dan, right? Fingers crossed. Yeah. As a coach, Dan, when you bring that many players into a club in one go, is it too much? Is it too much up here? Sometimes you want to drip feed people in and kind of get to know them. They get to know the team, then you drip feed a few more. Do you know what I mean? Is it too much to expect that much from them next season?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's tough to integrate everybody into your culture one at a time, en masse. But I would have thought from a Dragons point of view, that culture needs changing anyway, doesn't it? Maybe they're not going into a winning environment. It's not like bringing 9 into Leinster or 9 into a team that's like Toulouse that's winning every week, where they've got to feel like they come up to speed. I think there'll be a lot of learning from each individual that's coming in into camp and into the environment from other cultures around the rugby world. You look at Zebra this season; they've been more than competitive, haven't they, in a number of fixtures. I know they finished second bottom, granted, but they've been much better this season than they have been before. So I think there'll be a lot of learnings from these people, and they'll come in, they'll bring their own little bit, and hopefully, if they get back early enough and they can bring and knit the team together early enough, we'll be okay. So because I think the signings last season seemed promising, but when you don't see people playing, then I think they struggle to bring that last little 5 or 10%, into the environment that you'd hope that they bring, because they're not in a match day squad at all. They're not being rotated in and out. They're not playing. So hopefully, the lads that have come in, all 9 of them, I got no doubt that they'd be in a good shout of making the match day 23 on a regular basis, and hopefully that start to build a winning culture. Even the lads coming in from Cardiff, I know Welsh Rugby's in a little bit of a sorry state at the moment, but there's no doubt about it. Cardiff have known how to win games over the last few seasons and have definitely played rugby with a smile on their face. So hopefully they'll be able to pull the rest of the squad up by their bootstraps and drag things along a little bit. I think that was a lot, a little bit of leadership as well. That was the other thing I learned from Mr. Buttress on the Dragons Lair. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll work out all right.
And the last bit is a lack of news, really. I was hoping and still remain hopeful that we will hear something from the Ospreys and the Scarlets regarding
we had Johnny Williams announced on Saturday just before kickoff, didn't he?
Oh, apologies. Yes, sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Johnny Williams, sorry, great. That's another good signing. Keeping him hopefully for 2 years. No, I was going to say, going on to the no further information has been passed on from the Scarlets or the Ospreys around their reservations around the PRA, why they didn't sign it. Obviously, ongoing speculation what that actually will mean for the Scarlets and the Ospreys. Will they become 2 lesser funded clubs, which is what the Welsh Rugby Union? So will we have, in fact, a 2+2 scenario? or even, and obviously the talk doesn't go away about a reduction in the number of teams. So I don't know if anybody's got any further information about that.
We've been, behind the scenes, we've got good relationships with most of our clubs. So we've been asking questions of Scarlett and Ospreys, and we've been shut down, same as everybody else has this week, that there'll be no comment on this until it's resolved, sort of a thing. So we've had contact with other people who are not inside the clubs, that seem very well informed in these things. But basically, it's telling us, like, if we go down to 3, it's not 3 equally funded clubs. It's 2 plus 1, and there's a strong chance that one will be a feeder region up north. So and there was a suggestion that those 2 clubs would be the clubs that have signed. There would be no professional club west of Cardiff, which I find astonishing. But there's nothing on the table, and this I think this is the problem that we're getting, is there are too few people with a few snippets here, there, and everywhere that are making a bigger deal of it, instead of going, well, this is what's been put out. There's obviously negotiations going on behind the scenes that we aren't going to be party to. So yeah, stuff's happening. We'll leave them get on with it, and we'll see what comes out at the end. But all that everyone has officially said is 4 regions. And even when those people who have insider knowledge, when you challenge them and say, well, why aren't they saying they're going to drop a region? The answer to that is because it would be an absolute bin fire. Can you imagine dropping that bomb? So why are we? So there's a little bit of stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. What I do know, what I have learned from this week, was the amount of people that I keep my personal profile and my WRRAP profile were very separate. You guys know my personal profile is a very different profile to what I talk about on WRRAP. And I've had a lot of
I'm still not going to talk about all those swastikas, Lee.
That was my local MP, not me, and I still have the photos of him. So I do genuinely have the photos of my MP with swastikas on his board. So my former MP.
I don't want to know.
Oh yeah, it's quite the thing.
That was already a poor taste joke that's gone far too far now already.
So anyway, yeah, I've had a lot of contact from a lot of people this week, both through WRRAP and through my personal account, based on what we did last week. People were not happy that I put out a video asking people to actually read the statement rather than comment on commentary. So it's a bit like watching a game of rugby with the sound off. If you watch a game of rugby with the sound off and you've got no commentators and you've got no crowd and nothing, and you literally just watch the game, you will come out with usually a different version of events to what the commentator comes out with. And sometimes you just got to do that and remind yourself that you're a human being with conscious thought, and you're capable of processing information at a certain rate, and everybody processes certain information differently. So yeah, it's been a bit of a week for that. But the thing that keeps coming back to me is this is a financial decision being driven by finances, and from 2 or 3 different sources, the benefactors are not happy. That's what I'm getting. The benefactors that support clubs are not happy with the way things are going. And there were no names mentioned on that, but the benefactor, Cardiff, no longer has a benefactor. So that kind of rules Cardiff out. And then you can put 2 and 2 together and work out what comes after that, guys. But this is being driven by accountants, not by rugby.
Transparency is a major problem, though, isn't it? Because we're all rugby people. sat on this today, and everyone that listens to this, rugby people to some extent, but no one actually knows the whole truth. Nobody's actually seen, minutes from meetings and so on and so forth. Ultimately all the regions, apart from Cardiff, now are privately owned. But the last time I checked, the WRU was a kind of like a not-for-profit organisation that was running rugby in Wales. It's a governing body, not a business as such. And I think the transparency has been really poor, because we're all sort of trying to piece the jigsaw puzzle together, but we're missing the outline a little bit, aren't we? Or we're trying to, piece it together, but we've not got that picture on the front cover to have a go at it. So that's really disappointing. I think you hit the nail on the head as well with finances, and I think anyone listening to this needs to give their head a wobble if they think that, finances in rugby across the board, across world rugby, is in a good position. It's not. Wales is a bit of a bin fire at the moment, and it's played out in the press and so on and so forth. But over the bridge is the same. In France, it's the same. It's all a house of cards waiting to fall down. And personally, I think the World Rugby need to get involved somewhere along the line, or somebody needs to grab hold of the whole situation before it goes bang, because they're, smaller and smaller crowds every time it's turned the Super Rugby on in the morning, especially in Australia. If you can't fill a rugby stadium in New Zealand, we've got major problems. France, again, I'm like a banging the same old drum here, but France is propped up by rich benefactors. The English game's the same. The unions in Ireland, they're going to run out of, it's a finite resource, the cash, isn't it? If we don't get a product right on the field, then it's a slippery slope that we're on. I don't know how we fix it, but I think that it needs a world rugby approach rather than just localized silos in terms of unions and so on and so forth. Everyone needs to be pushing the game in the same direction rather than fighting their own little fires here, there, and everywhere. I don't know what you guys think.
I think that there's that famous Irish joke when you want to get somewhere and I wouldn't start from here. Well, we are here, but also I think you need to look at why we have professional rugby in any country. What's the purpose? What's the why? And I'm sure we'll talk about fans, engagement, pathways for players, having successful teams leading to successful international teams, and then talk about, well, what's the best way of achieving those things? Rather than it's 2 plus 2 or 3 plus 1 or 1 plus 3 or whatever. We've started in the wrong place. And that's my view, is that we need to really go back to basics and say, what is the purpose of having a professional setup in any country? Because there is one international team who don't, my understanding, have any professional teams, and that's Argentina.
Well, haven't they got
They did have the Jaguar.
You got the Jaguars 15 in the SLAR, or it might be Argentina 15 now.
Okay.
They also compete in the South America Cup.
Okay.
But that's
you make an interesting point there, Nick, and I'm not entirely sure of my history on sort of global sport here, but I'm assuming most pro sport sort of started out in the States. I would have thought, because of the commercialism of it over there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've all sort of tried to keep up in varying aspects. I know that rugby league was quote unquote professional, and probably football in England as well were paying people. But again, that was a commercial thing, wasn't it? Because even back in, football or soccer, whatever you want to call it, was pulling in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands at certain games to start off with anyway. So there's always been a commercial aspect, but we've never got that commercialism right, have we? We've never got the business aspect of the game right, in my opinion. From as soon as the game turned pro in 1995, God, we were on a slippery slope to where we are now, really. And we tried to prop it up when the regions came in, and it's gone full circle back to sort of where we are again. So we may not be making the same mistakes with different ones, but they're very similar, aren't they?
Yeah.
When I was playing, when the game turned pro, and literally the game turned professional, I think the announcement came out on like a Wednesday night, and we were training on the Thursday, and on the Thursday, the season before, that, we were all getting cash under the table. And when the game turned pro, we were told, okay, you can still have the cash, but it'll still be under the table because we don't know where taxes stand and we don't want to get caught out on tax. And then 12 months later, the club, I left at the end of that season, and then the club went bankrupt the season after. And if rumours are to be believed, is not far away from repeating that now. So even clubs further down the system still aren't learning from that. But for me, what you're saying, Nick, about what's the purpose and things like that. We almost need to go back to understanding what Wales is and why it's important in Wales, and how does that deliver in Wales. We've also got a massive challenge from sports like football, from American football, from ice hockey, from basketball, that are pulling kids away. So we either need to go back to our grassroots, go back to that proper grassroots and say, do you know what, when you're Welsh, you play rugby, and there's an element of pride in this that says this is why you stay in the country and this is why you play. Or you go completely the other way and you go down that individual star kind of basis, which is what American sport is based on. You know, American football is 45 men that all play around the quarterback. You know, the quarterback rules absolutely everything. He's the star guy. If your quarterback is useless, then the whole franchise is in trouble. So, you know, it's very much individual based. Your baseball is the same thing. Your pitcher is your key man, and your first strike hitter, they're your key men. They're your two guys that you always put out. So yeah, we can either stick to our guns and say this is what rugby is, and this is what it means to us in Wales, and this is how we're going to do it, or we have to go completely the other way and down that American route of let's promote the individual. It's an individual sports, and here's a superstar. And I'm not sure that rugby, the ethos of rugby, sits very well with that superstar image. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we as players, I don't think we embrace that. You see players when they score a try, nobody really gets up. There are a couple now, but nobody really gets up and goes and does the whole lap around the pitch and takes the shirt off and goes, yeah, look at me. Do you know what I mean? We get up and we go, that was good. Thank you, boys. Thanks for the pass. On we go.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're saying there. Rugby's got its, you know, the quote unquote rugby values that are still very much in play. But rugby's going to get left behind, mind, if it doesn't change. It's as simple as that, because people want to be entertained. However it is, people want to have some sort of access to superstars within their sport or any sort of field that they're interested in. You take a look at any celebrity in any sort of professional field now, but we've got, you know, we should be encouraged. If Finn, you know, I use the Finn Russell example all the time as well. He's on £1 million at Bath, good on him, great money, sets himself up for life if that's what he's earning. But for me, you know, why does he need to be wearing a number 10 every week? He should have his own. You know, why are we not having individual squad numbers like football, like American football? How many shirts can Bath sell with, I don't know, 37 and Russell on the back? You know, every time that he scores a try or something, you know, why is he not being followed around why are we not having things on film, on TikTok and all? You know, why is he not pushing that individual brand to drag more eyes onto Bath, to drag more finances in through shirt sales and so on and so forth? We're missing a beat there, aren't we? Because yeah, I know they're professional athletes, but it seems to work for the professional athletes in America. You know, everyone knows who Michael Jordan is, everyone knows who LeBron James is, everyone knows who all of these massive stars are, and the sort of social media and marketing impact that they have, but it doesn't affect their performance, does it?
Yeah, it's just that it just does. I don't know. It doesn't fit well. Harley, you were going to come in there and say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking, because obviously a lot of the stuff we've been talking about is happening in rugby, but because we're all white men, we're only focusing on males game. If we swing over to the women's game, actually they are doing a lot of that. A lot of the play, part of it is out of necessity because they're just so underfunded. But you know, if you look at like the PWR, they get 25K salaries, 2 which I think are about 5K, and then everyone else is petrol money, which fuck all. They definitely deserve to be paid more. But the fact is, they're bringing it up slowly, and it's a little bit at a time. Right? Can we get the crowds? Right, we'll put a little bit more in. We're going through. Even with the way WRU have done Celtic Challenge, right? And most of that was because it was World Rugby funded. Now that money's out there, hoist them onto the regions. But it was, we're not going to give, or we're not going to set up like 4 pro teams. We've got this one team, then we've got 2 teams. They're not pro, they're sort of don't know how to, and then they have their central contracts. Lots of problems with it. I understand, and 30k again, not a lot, but it's gradual. And if you look at all women programs, they're all gradually bringing them up, so they are learning. I think the problem is as we had with during COVID, and we were trying to get a load of players to basically take a pay cut. You know, if you're sitting there on £300,000, you're not going to suddenly turn around and go, "Yeah, sure, I'll go on 150." But they've worked hard. It's only natural for you to want to go and get more job, and that inflation drives up because clubs are willing to pay it. The union did try pay banding, but that seemed to be a proper mash wash. Yeah, I mean, if we could get more personalities, that'd be great. Like, we're having, you saw on Twitter everyone having a go at Jaden Hendricks for winking when he went down with cramp. But love the fact that Henry Pollock's an absolute prick. I mean, I think both of them are perfectly acceptable, and I've seen far worse on the pitch. But we can't be saying we need more personality, we need more of this. We need something that drives interest in the sport, and then criticising when it goes. I mean, I'd like to point out that Bill Bowman once said the greatest of all rugby values was amateurism. So we'll I'll leave that one with you with all the pay players. I mean, for me, looking at someone who's basically, this is all, most of rugby professionalism is history for me. I've came to it quite late. Regions were already established, and from my opinion, it looks like everyone got paid, and then they started worrying about the professional aspect. And you didn't really see professionalism until 2003 with that England team. When it was all about conditioning, coaching, strategies, and then sort of more of a business mind. And maybe, I mean, the problem is it's too late now. Maybe what the Dragons are doing is quite right in the fact that they're focusing on getting that business first and keep the rugby side ticking over as much as they can. All right, yes, the results are suffering, and they're probably going to take a hit in that short to medium term. But if they're sustainable and they know they can afford to sign XYZ over these few years because they're generating the income or they're using it for whatever, then maybe that is the model to go for, and not paying for fucking roof walks and no one wants to go on, or a hotel that's too expensive for anyone to stay at.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is something that we will come back to at some point through the summer. So we will move on, but before we do, very briefly, if you're liking what you're seeing and hearing, please do give us a like, a rate, a 5-star review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of those, and follow us on Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and Blue Sky and anywhere else that you can find us, because we really do appreciate it. Mainly from a vanity point of view, I'll be honest with you. It's a vanity thing, but yeah, we're all going to get shirts. We're all going to get WRRAP shirts with our names on the back and a number. That's what we're doing. Right. Let's briefly move on to the playoffs on the weekend. So we're obviously going to talk about Scarlets, but before we do, I was going to bring up Winkgate, as it's now known. So we'll do Winkgate, then we'll do How Good is Patchell, and then we'll do Scarlets. So you brought it up already then, Harley. So talk us through what Winkgate is. You've got to be really careful saying that. I mean, really, really careful. Talk us through it and why it's causing such a fuss.
I mean, so it all goes to the 4th of the 4 URC quarterfinals between Sharks and Munster, which, I'll be honest, was a bit like a car crash for me. Incredibly intriguing, but not necessarily pleasant. So it basically finished 80 minutes, 24 all. Then we had 10 minutes of solid scrummaging, as far as I could see, and Sharks got 1 penalty in that and decided not to kick it. And they could have saved the whole mess. So then we got to our, as far as I can work out, the 3rd ever kick penalty shootout in rugby with the infamous first one. I forget who was involved in that, but obviously Munster was in one a couple of years ago with Toulouse. No one mentioned Tom. No one ever mentioned Nugget and goal kick in the same sentence, please.
Yeah.
So anyway, so there's a set of kicks, and then we're going through the second round. So at that point, the Sharks had kicked 4 of their 4. Now Scannell, no, Rory Scannell, whichever the centre, not the hooker, Scannell in the Munster
Rory.
squad. He missed his first one, and then Jack Crowley goes to take his second kick, and Jaden Hendricks does what all South African players are fantastic at, which is having an injury at just the right time to kill momentum. They do it. Everyone does it. I've not experienced a single rugby game where at least one player from each team doesn't go down with something just to take a breath out of the game. It's something we all do, whether you're playing in seconds or thirds rugby all the way up to international. It happens. But anyway, so he goes down with cramp, and Jack Crowley, who's about to take his kick, get quite rightly frustrated with it, and Jaden Henson, and the camera's focused on him to make emphasis, gives him a cheeky wink. Now, people are saying that as him faking the cramp. Other people are saying, well, no, clearly, if you look at his leg musculature, you can tell it's cramping. Well, irrelevant. The fact is, Crowley then nails the kick. As far as I'm concerned, that's by the by. That's the sort of shithousery we expect in the game. Munster fans have very short memories because they've got players who will do shit like that and far worse stuff throughout. Every team has those players. Just move on. I admit it's easy for me to say it wasn't my team involved.
I think the bit for me was people kept sharing this image and going, look closely. I was looking at his boots. I was going, has he got an extra stud? Is there something wrong with the studs? Has he got blades on or something? Is it because they're orange? I don't understand. What's the idea of his? Why is his boot? I genuinely had to ask 3 or 4 people before I worked out that he's got cramp in his leg. If you look at his other leg, you can see that the muscle has spasmed. And you go, okay, that was it. It's almost a bit of a letdown then, because I was hoping for something really controversial with the boot and extra studs or something. No,
I mean, it's hardly Bloodgate, is it? Let's be
there's
honest. It's not that
There's
level
some proper drama. That's a Netflix documentary for you.
I get why he was annoyed, because he could have gone down with cramp 5 yards to the side and he could have just carried on. Yeah, and I think they timed him at like 2 and a bit minutes with cramp. And normally when you stand up with cramp, your muscle spasms again. As you stretch it, so you'll go down, you'll get stretched out. And the physio will go, right, okay, stand up, knowing perfectly well that you're going to spasm again, and then you have to stretch it out again while you're stood up. So none of that happened. He kind of, as he stood up, he was just kind of still mouthing it off. And then they went, well, I thought your leg was, and he almost had to go, which leg was it? This one. And there was a limp. So it comes back to what we were saying earlier, Dan, about that thing about rugby values and showboating, shithousery, however we want to look at it. Does it sit well with what we? It's like, have you seen this? There was a video as well of a like an under-18s game or something, or it was a youth game, young kids playing. Penalty on the 22, and the guy goes to take the kick, but the other team go behind the posts, and just have a quick huddle behind the post, and the guy just chips it to the corner, and the winger touches down. Now that's not a try, because that's ungentlemanly conduct. And the first rule in rugby I was ever taught was ungentlemanly conduct. If you say you're going to go for the posts, you go for the posts. And quite a lot of referees have come out and said that's the rule, So I do worry a little that it's kind of chipping away at some of those rugby values, and you're starting to see a wink here, a bit of a nudge there, the undoing the laces, the tripping the scrum half at the back of the scrum. Those kind of bits now filtering into kids coming through, and not necessarily playing with the rugby values that I for one, kind of, that was my thing when I was playing and when I was coaching.
Yeah, I think they go in. You just got to embrace it. I say go in. I don't think they're going to go totally, because rugby in itself, people come to rugby for a purpose, for a certain amount of discipline, and to a certain extent for those values. But what we all got to remember now is, like, my boy's 9, plays rugby. They are a YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, social media generation. Things are changing. We have to accept that. And the things that they see online now, they'll one kid will score a try or something and do some sort of celebration. I'm like, what the hell was that? Oh, it happens on Fortnite. And I'm like, oh right, okay. Well, I don't know what that, things are changing. Rugby, we can't, if we're gonna try and hold on to it, if the Blazer Brigade are gonna try and hold on to it, Bill Beaumont wants to hold on to all of those, then it's gonna fail. We have to try and embrace it somehow, and really allow our original rugby values of, what was it, a thugs game played by gentlemen and all this sort of stuff. Making sure that you can have a drink in the bar with the guy you just smashed 7 bells of shit into for 80 minutes opposite you. All of that sort of thing needs to go on. But I think we're going to see a rise in, shithousery to a point, and we're going to see a rise in things that, all kids want to do these days is go viral. You see, especially in England, they have the next gen stuff, I think it is now, that they're making sort of minor superstars out of schoolboy rugby players at sort of 16 to 18 years of age, lads that are playing first 15 rugby, particularly in the English schools. I don't know whether it's come across to our private schools yet, like Monmouthshire or Monmouth Boys or Llandovery College or whatever it is. But it's coming, isn't it? We can't avoid it. It's everything that you talk about there that you've just described, and that I sort of see from a 9-year-old's perspective every time they play. The rugby's changing. We just need to embrace it, because we're going to get left behind otherwise.
I think there's got to be some fine lines drawn. So, like, it's one thing to, as I said, take a breath, take a knee. Oh, hang on, my leg's a bit sore. To kill time for the clock. Like that was, it says, if that's just games we shape this. It's another thing then, like we saw in the same match, and actually in other games, where someone's scoring an obvious try, you're never going to go and tackle them, and then people are sliding in on their knees.
Yeah,
and that should be a penalty. Like it's in the laws for a penalty for that sort of thing, and it that needs a sub. I refer to it in the Cardiff Stormers game as the debut of Special, because he was a fucker for doing it in Exeter as well. Same as when he was in Ulster and now with Stormers. But like, if refs aren't going to pick up on those sorts of things, it's going to creep into the game.
He's listened to you, Harley.
Lying all over the ruck. Or...
He's listened to you, Harley. He's retired today.
Yeah.
I think it's, the fallout from rugby as well. I think, we've seen this this craze of the sort of, is it run it straight as well? That's sort of spawned out from rugby as well. You talk about rugby values. This is just 2 massive blokes who always look to be from sort of South Sea Island descent, from what I've watched, just literally running it straight at each other. But again, you go and look at the social media pull that this sort of thing has. It is already generating crowds. Yeah. It's not going to be long before it's on this show, is it? Someone's going to go, hang on.
There's a lad died, doesn't it?
There's a kid died. Yeah.
There is. And I don't know how that's going to affect the sort of stuff that they're doing, but it's interesting to see the sort of offshoots that are coming from, our brilliant game, and the sort of mass, sort of viral impact that these sorts of things has. Maybe it'll be a flash in the pan, who knows? But we need to embrace some sort of change or modernizing the game somehow.
Well, let's test a couple of old school values now then, and move on to the Scarlets game. So Nick, let's test these old school values. What did you think of the Scarlets game on Saturday, Nick?
I was quite impressed, Lee.
There you go. See, there you
There
go.
you
That's
go.
That's
There
old
you
school.
go.
The old school values still exist. Go on,
No,
mate.
I think last week I said that if they go behind a couple of early tries, I fear for them. But and that's exactly what happened. But they came back into it. They scored a couple of good tries. There's a couple of controversies. I never really thought they were going to win, if I'm honest with you, but they certainly gave Leinster a game. And just a general question, on Leinster, maybe for us to consider later. Has Leinster's game plan and Irish team's game plan perhaps been found out a little bit, that other teams are adapting to it, and they are not going to be as dominant as they have been, both as a regional team or an international team over the next couple of years? But Scarlets can be very proud of their season, and there's some really good standout performances. Blair Murray really does look a real great player, and what a find. But I'd like to shout out Alec Heckburn. He's gone a little bit under the radar. I think he's for early doors, he struggled a little bit in the scrum. He thought, oh, why have they signed him? But his scrummaging has improved as he's got used to the players around him, and I think he's a fantastic player. His tackling is first class, and I think he's been a real asset. Does not get the plaudits that perhaps some of the others signings have had, but I think you've really acquired a very, very good player there.
Yeah. Harley, what did you think? I'm going to go around the table now, and I'm going to go last because I just like hearing you boys talking about Scarlets and not having a chance to say, well, in my game. So yeah, Harley, what did you think?
Well, I mean, the Scarlets seem to get line-out tips from Cardiff.
I knew you'd find a way. Go on.
I wasn't even going to mention Cardiff until you had that spiel. So I was like, right, fine. You want me to talk Cardiff? I will talk Cardiff. Yeah, I mean, it was great. It's just whenever Scarlets were able to get into Leinster's 22, they were messing up the line out. So we've got to think. Leinster didn't look particularly great. Scarlets, I thought, for the most part, kept them quiet. I think that's right. I think a lot of people have worked out how to play Leinster. Leinster are very much an off-ball team. They want to smother you with their defence and get you on counter transition. So if you keep giving them ball, then they don't seem to really know what to do with it. Yeah, Blair Murray. I mean, everyone's talking about how amazing Blair Murray was for his try. Let's just say, that was Ellis Me noticing that the ball was going to deck. Some beautiful soccer skills. I mean, and I'd have said it was it was a great try if it was a football match. But I just thought, as I think me and she joked off the air, it was a very Toby Booth era try, where it didn't seem to happen, but it looked really impressive. And something had happened that there was clearly a really good defensive read that allowed that to happen. But it wasn't like the plan was to score a try from there. I mean, to be fair, something Q pointed out was that on the UFC rewind was that Blair Murray was incredibly disciplined to know to drop back just as me kicked the ball, just to make sure that he was keeping himself on side as and when. Yeah, I thought it was all right. I mean, I think pressure told in those last 20 minutes. There were quite a few silly penalties given away. A few hands in ruck when Holly had already said no, and Holly, this is one of those things you've got to know with your refs, and actually it is a big trend in World Rugby now, is unless you can basically get right in and take that ball straight away, it's, a lot of refs are going to give the benefit to the attack. Because, World Rugby is all about this. We want more tries game, we want to speed it up. That's the reason. That's part of the reason why we're on almost every single league and international competition at the moment is on record tries. Or close to breaking their record tries. So, there's a bit of naivety in there, a soft offside here and there, and in the end, Leinster able to just sort of kick the threes, which to a lot of people that ended up winning itself against Leinster, because they were one of the first teams to just be like, no, we don't care about scoring threes, we're just going to keep scoring tries against you because we can. Because as soon as we get a line up and you're 22, we're going to score. And they couldn't, to be fair. Scarlet's defence was pretty good as it has been all season. Jared Payne is doing what he's really good at, which is being a defence coach instead of trying to moonlight as an attack coach. every so often. The teams he becomes defence coach for have really good defences. It's, you know, talking about the Aussie Rewind, Adam was lamenting the fact that they lost Peel and Ping in those respective roles. So, well, I think the big thing for them now is people are aware of what they're about, and particularly the likes of Blair Murray. Are they going to be able to back it up next season? I hope they do. Not to the expense of Cardiff, obviously, but I think that's going to be the proof in the pudding if it's a flash in the pan or if they can keep this and build further.
So, what about you, Dan? Was there anything in that game that you thought, you know, I'm surprised, or anything that you take out of that from a coach's point of view?
No, I thought the 14-0 down, Scarlets went pretty rapidly. I thought 14-0 down, it was probably game done. At that point, it's a tough place to go and give 14 points up, effectively giving them 14-point swing straight away. I thought that was probably game over then. But in fairness to the Scarlets, they really dug in. They had a good go. I agree with everyone saying that Blair Murray was absolutely fantastic. I'd go along with that. The big thing for me was Gareth Davies. I thought they really missed Gareth Davies. That was a major loss for them. That experience, was he a 50 cap Wales international, maybe more? Gareth might be, maybe more, yeah. So missing that experience and that little bit of extra game management, I thought probably told, you know. But what was it, 33-21 finishing? Not a bad return, is it? You've already beaten Leinster at home as well once this season. So on the whole, I think the Scarlets have had a decent season. The one thing from a Leinster perspective, I think they're going to have a bit of a problem at fly half long term if Prendergast doesn't shore up his defence a little bit. In attack, there's no doubt about it. He suits the way that they want to play multi-phase when they get a ball back. Great distribution skills, but the lad doesn't want to tackle too much, does he? So they're going to have to try and sort that out. And I know he's really, really young, but you know, if anyone's playing Leinster now and Prendergast in the team, you're going to target him. You know, on a real basic level, you're going to have to go and target the man there. But on the whole, you're probably really happy with the Scarlets season. You know, they went out on their shield a little bit, but 14 points was probably a bit too much. The big thing for the Scarlets this season, for me, is that Champions Cup, rugby, top level European competition. The only problem is they're going to be able to back it up with the same budget that, you know, the likes of the Dragons are going to have this year, which is really unfortunate that they won't be able to, because it could be the Champions Cup's a funny thing, isn't it, right? Because you want to play the Toulouses, the Bordeaux, the Leinsters, all of these clubs, but you want to be competitive. You know, I watched Exeter against Bordeaux. Exeter at Sandy Park this season, they shipped 70-odd points. Absolute disaster for them. So I really hope that, you know, the Scarlets back up this season's progression with some good, solid signings. They do get an improved budget, some sort of agreement with the union. Because the union should be looking at this as well, thinking, well, hang on, the Scarlets are in top flight European rugby next year. We don't want them absolutely battered every week by teams that have got 2 or 3 times their budget. So, yeah, on the whole, it would be a sort of B+ for me in terms of the Scarlets season, especially from where they started off losing a run of games. So, doff my cap to Dwayne Peel down there. They've done all right, haven't they?
Yeah, but if you look at last season and compare it to this season, it's chalk and cheese. But actually, the personnel isn't that different. And you know, yes, Lee Jones, I think, has helped to take some of the pressure off Dwayne Peel and has allowed coaches to coach. I think that's been the key bit this year. The off the field stuff hasn't really affected players the way it has done in the past. It's been a really settled side, almost too settled. Where when Archie Hughes comes in, he's, you know, it's like his 3rd or 4th game of the season. It's a little bit rabbit in the headlights to start with. So, you know, for me, the issue last season was defence, and like Harley's alluded to, you know, Jared Payne has done an absolute belting job in defence, because last year you go 14, okay, well, grab a packet of crisps, boys, because we're up to 40 in another 10 minutes, you know. And we did that last season. We absolutely caved in, and it was 1 point last season. We were 15 minutes away from the end of the game. We were 2 points behind, and we ended up losing by 40 points. That was last season. I think it might have been Munster. And you're like, how the hell does that happen in a professional team? And then you look at this season, and right up to 70, 75 minutes, you know, those boys are competing like they want to win. Those boys are still feeling like, you know, if we nick it here, then, you know, we're within a shot. So, you know, defence has been awesome this year, and the leadership of Josh McLeod this year has been absolutely phenomenal. There was a bit where he had a couple of injuries that really damaged us. There isn't another leader in that team that kind of does it the way he does it. So I think he's been really, really important, and Costello. I think those two, if we keep those fit, healthy, and on the pitch at key moments next year, I think it'll be okay on
Would
that.
you like
So,
some
yeah,
nerdy stats from the spreadsheet about the Scarlets' defence?
please do give us some nerdy stats.
So last season, Scarlets conceded on average 31.4 points a game, and that was 4.4 tries. This season, it's down to 2.8 tries conceded a game. Bear in mind the average in the URC is 3 tries scored, just over 3 tries scored a game, so better average. But the impressive thing is on the flip side, they concede on average 21.3 for tries, so they've shaved off 10 points a game in the defence. So attack hasn't necessarily gone much better, but the huge improvement in defence has basically made, I think, only Bulls have conceded 30 points fewer times than Scarlets this season in the league.
What's the penalty count difference this season?
I don't have those stats on me. That thing I only sort of keep them
Because the one thing that I've noticed,
I'm nerdy and I look at different ways of doing league tables.
Because the one thing that I've noticed this season is the Scarlet scrum is much better.
Yeah.
The pack's much better. So therefore, if they're not having a balking up front, the chances are they're probably conceding less penalties and therefore spending less time, without the ball and less time in their own red zone. Yeah. So
I know
maybe I don't know, but I'm just there's some sort of pattern there.
I know last season they were rooted with Cardiff for the last 2 seasons of the URC. They were rooted with Cardiff at the bottom of the league stats for discipline. Now they're sort of mid-table now.
We just needed our gym. Someone had decided to paint our gym yellow, and we'd run out of paint, so we were collecting cards to fill in the gaps, and that's what it was. So we managed to fill in the gaps in the gym. The gym is now all yellow with all the cards over the last 2 seasons. Don't need any more yellow cards now, but we did get.
Is that what you call Lousy the Decorator?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
in fairness to the Scarlets, just looking on the URC website now, they're second out of 16, I think, in terms of their defence. Second on tackle success, but they way down the bottom on the 16th out of 16th in terms of discipline. Bottom for yellow cards. They've had 18 yellow cards this season and have conceded 204 penalties, which actually takes them down to 14th. So my theory about them conceding less penalties is absolute bullshit. And it's all down to them wanting to make a few more tackles this season than they did last year.
Can I?
I said I misread it. I don't know if it's included the last week's game as well into this. I don't know if they update it for the off season or if it's just.
No, you were right, Harley. In terms of their defence, it's been outstanding. Just looking at their discipline record, though, their discipline record is absolute bollocks. To be honest with you, it's shocking.
Dan sitting there going like next time, check the league stats first.
Check the stats first.
That's why I try not to talk outside of my spreadsheets.
Yeah, I did say it was just a theory. It was a wrong theory, but it was just a theory.
It was said with confidence, though.
It was said with confidence, yeah.
Just a question, and I'm not. When we're comparing performance one year to the next, would we be better off looking at the corresponding fixtures? So really, you should be comparing 22-23 to 24-25 because you had the same fixtures.
Not
so if you're playing
necessarily, because the first 2 years they did. So the way the URC seems to work it is you have 1 year and then they swap round for the second year and then they jumble them up.
Right.
So it's not
Yeah.
always back and
No,
forth.
I
They
was
do
just thinking
tweak
over the
them
last,
slightly.
I think from what I can, 22, 23 was similar to 24, 25, certainly the Ospreys case. That,
Yeah,
we had teams like Connacht at home those 2 seasons. And obviously going to Connacht on a Friday night is a different prospect to playing them at home.
Yeah, I know. I think there's so many things that change, though, isn't there? Everyone changes squads every year. Most of us change a coach every couple of years as well. So yeah, it is interesting to
in
compare
terms of
different.
in terms of progression now, Lee, with the Scarlets, because obviously they've bettered last season's performance, European rugby, top flight European rugby this year. Who do you bring in, or who would you like to bring in an ideal world? And what areas of the pack do you strengthen? Because with success as well, especially in Wales now, sometimes it's detrimental to a professional club, because the better you are, the more people you're going to have in the Wales squad. We've only got thin squads around Wales at the moment anyway. The Scarlets looking like that's going to continue because of budget constraints. So where do you strengthen?
Yeah, I mean, the common sense thing that we did last year that we've learned from before was we got the bulk of our pack from abroad.
Not much
So
qualified, yeah.
yeah, when it came to Six Nations and autumn internationals, our pack was pretty much solid. And that's what we built on the back of, and that's what we built on the back of previously. So, I do kind of like that idea that we've got a core of players who are not going to get called up for Wales.
Yeah.
In Wayne Pivac's first year, we had, I think it was 5 Welsh players. We had 5 players called up for Wales, and we just ran riot. And by the end of that season, on that summer tour, I think we had 12 players on the summer tour or something like that. So, there's a lot to be said for avoiding the international season. There's a lot to be said, to be honest, to putting the Six Nations at the end of the season, so nobody's affected by it. But
And that's one thing, because obviously the URC fixtures are out this time. And we're down to only 1 week in the Six Nations because they've dropped a fallow week. Of course, Cardiff still have to fucking play Leinster away, because of course we fucking have to play Leinster fucking away.
moan, 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 moan. Never happy, Harley.
Just looking at your starting pack.
This is just what I get from being WRU owned.
Exactly, mate.
I'm moaning for 2 now.
Looking at your starting pack from the weekend, though, which, all right, you can argue the toss about a couple of others, but if there's a Wales squad being announced for the Six Nations now, you're probably looking at Elias going in there, Henry Thomas being in that squad, McLeod being in that squad, and Tame Plumtree. So that is 50% your frontline pack, but you did back that up with I think Van der Merwe was a cracking signing when it non-Wales qualified. What a player he's been for you. But then you'd lose, just looking at the bench, probably lose Matthias maybe into that squad as well. So yes, it is interesting to see where would you go abroad again now then to pick up more strength in depth?
Well, if they can.
Yeah.
If you can, yeah. In an ideal world now, would you go abroad again?
Yeah. Probably. Do you know what? At the minute, I think we just let it settle for a season. I think the one area where we probably need more depth is halfbacks. 9 and 10 is probably the area.
Problem for you, yeah.
Yeah, you take Costello out there. Well, you saw that on the game.
Have you got anyone else as a backup 10? Because hasn't Titcombe gone back to Leicester?
Yeah, Titcombe's gone back, and we've got.
Obviously, Lloyd, you couldn't wait to get rid of you, Lloyd.
Did you see him on Saturday? I mean, come on. Yeah, what's his name?
I've seen him play worse.
For us,
I've seen him play worse, and you guys win.
Yeah. What's his name from Exeter? Osprey.
Joe Hawkins.
Joe Hawkins.
Yeah, you're gonna have a 10 who's never played 10, who doesn't really play 10. So you've basically replaced Ewan Lloyd for a slightly bigger Ewan Lloyd.
Having said that, there are 2 kids coming through academy that have got real promise. And I think we've got a 9 coming through academy as well that's showing real proper international promise. So, you know,
You're talking about
the-
Legat Jones.
well, he's
Jones,
one of those.
he's
He would be the one.
probably he's probably the superstar that for the next generation. He's probably 3 or 4 years away, and then you've got Steph Jack Jones as well coming through.
You say 3 or 4 years away, I think he's been named in the 20 squad, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's in the
Like,
45, yeah.
Isn't he like 17,
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, but
So he's definitely been, you know, this is the conveyor belt that's coming through. It's do you bring in somebody for?
I
yeah,
think
but you
with
need
the,
someone for the now, because
it's-
if the Dragons, if you've seen what's happened with the Dragons and actually with Wales and Gatland's second tenure, bringing players in too early just seems to do more harm than
Yeah,
good.
it
At
doesn't
times.
work. Yeah.
You've got Max Douglas as well to come back in the forwards.
Yeah, so he's due to come back, and somebody else is out injured as well to come
I say
back.
Jake Ball might be. I mean, I don't know. Depending on how fit and how much you can actually get out of him, he could be a good signing because he's probably unlikely to go for a Wales call-up, really.
Yeah,
The
I
second
reckon you'd
row
be
isn't too bad.
surprised.
But
yeah. Do you know what? We're talking about celebrities and stuff like that. Jake Ball has almost become a legend. He's more of a legend since he's gone than he was when he was here, because I don't think we really valued what he brought to the game when he was here. He was a real bar of steel in that pack, and he's about as far away from lousy as you can get in terms of, you know, Jake Ball isn't going to be sidestepping centres and running with a ball in one hand and basketball flipping it over the top and all of that. Jake Ball's just going to eat people on his way, and he's going to do 10 meters and 10 meters and 10 meters and 10 meters. And no matter who's in front of him, he's going 10 meters. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's almost become a mythical legend already. So bringing Jake Ball back into the club, if nothing else, is a marketing. It's a marketing goldmine. I would be having Jake Ball fake beards everywhere. Do you know what I mean? The
well, they
worst
did it
thing,
with
Jake,
Isaac Kasim, didn't they? Back way
Yeah,
back when he was.
he was
They
great.
had the beards and stuff.
But the worst thing Jake Ball ever did was shave his beard off. He just walked down the street and people were going, "Who's that big guy?" Go, "That's Jake Ball." Nah, it's not Jake Ball. He's the Jake Ball has got the beard, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to watching Jake Ball play just because there's an aura about him of aggression, of hardness, of determination that our reputation's a bit more. Let's throw the ball
Soft.
around. Let's do the fancy. So yeah, it is. It is.
Yes.
We're a bit pretty boy, and he kind of gave us that different edge. So I think that is the best one. But I'd say 9 and 10 is where we need to be. So
He's a like for like swap though, isn't he? Because he's being brought in because Alex Craig's on his way out the door.
Yeah.
Am I right? It's a shame really
Yeah, he's
because
gone.
being able to add Ball in on top of what you've got in there would have been fantastic, wouldn't it? But there you go.
And you just look at how, you know, when you've got players coming through, if you're coming through academy now and you're going, stick with the academy because you'll be training with Jake Ball next year. Oh yeah. I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of other stuff as well as the first one. So just want to move on, kind of move on from that game and just throw this in. We'll forget about talking about international stuff. Patchell on commentary, and Patch has been back in the country since finishing in Japan. If I was the Dragons, genuinely, I would be breaking arms and legs to get Patchell in my club. Not well, maybe he's a player coach. I think he just talks such a good game. I knew he was a good coach before, but the way he talks, the way he explained things, the stuff he was looking at in commentary, Alan Wynne Jones is sitting next to him going like, yeah, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. That's a good point. So, I mean, what did you all make of Patch, and who wants to start the bidding? How many pies are you willing to offer to get Patch in your club? So let's go to you, Harley, first, because he came through the system at you boys. So how much to get Patch back in?
I mean, let's be fair. I think we've got to go down the Leinster route, and it's got to be all about pride and the natural culture and the big bag of WRU cash that's convenient to them. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is, your heritage and where you came from. It's all about that.
Nick, what did you make of Patch, and what would you be prepared to give Patch to get him down to the Ospreys?
We can offer him a Mediterranean climate with views of Mumbles Bay, and a house overlooking Langland Bay, and I think he would fit in very well.
He did come across it, didn't he? He did come across really well. Dan, what would you offer to get Patch down to Rodney Parade, mate?
Well, if anyone's been to the Sen Barbecue or the Sen Bakery in Maindy, that's a fantastic little stop off there. I think he'd be a good addition to any team really in Wales, wouldn't he? He's experienced guy, been around the world. Again, played Super Rugby. Has obviously had a bit of experience out in Japan now, and has got what 20 odd, 30 Wales caps, something along those lines. Probably the issue I would have thought for most regions for Patchell is going to be the salary that he'll want coming back. But then maybe he's more of a realist now and going, well, I'm not going to get a big salary back or as big a salary as I have been having out in Japan. I'm just here to play some rugby. So maybe he'll settle a little bit. I think he'd be a great addition. He's 32. So the age profile would probably fit in okay if you're bringing through some younger fly halves as well. But again, you look at it from how quickly you're going to lose a Rhys Patchell into the Wales setup if he signs for your region. Not that that's a bad thing, but you're going to be without him for that period that we discussed in terms of your Jake Balls coming back to the Scarlets and so on. But I'd snap him up, no problem. But what's his injury profile like? Is he injury prone? Anybody know? What's he been?
He's not got the best.
He was for quite a bit, but I don't know what it's been like since he's been in Japan and things.
And,
Wayne Pivac there, and he was sort of.
He can't ever play for the Dragons then with any sort of injury profile because you'll only see him play once for Pontypool or Ebervale, and that'll be it. Him and Funaki will end up watching local rugby. So yeah, he'd be good. He's played for the Scarlets previously, only 80-odd appearances for the Scarlets.
Well, he was the fly half when they won the league.
I
mean, admittedly, he missed the last 20 minutes of pretty much all games, and they moved Hadley Parks to 10 for reasons, but it worked. Even though he's a terrible goal kicker.
There's no beating around the bush. He's as good as anything that any club's got in their armory at the moment, isn't he? So yeah.
And I think maybe with his age profile and his his injury profile as well, perhaps you're only looking to play 10 games over the season, just fit in now and again, come off the bench the last 50 minutes. Really. Yeah, exactly. And also the influence off the pitch with the younger 10s.
Yeah, well, based on that, I think he'd probably suit someone like a Dan Edwards or a Sam Costello. That those the two West Walian clubs would be the obvious from the outset. I know the Dragons need a fly half, but Tinas Tabia is around a similar age, isn't he? Is a seasoned pro albeit from having played in South Africa. So how much is he going to learn from Patch when you're a little bit set in your own ways? So yeah, maybe it would be a better fit for the Ospreys or the Scarlets.
I'd snap his hand off.
But the Scarlets, I mean, one of the complaints that I know Hugh had is he was a bit worried that 10s couldn't really develop in the Scarlet system because there isn't really an experienced 10 for them to learn off.
Yeah.
And actually him being there as a player coach, even if it is more coaching, would be perfect to try and get these younger players through and to round off edges, whereas you had Costello and Owen Lloyd who had aspects of the game they didn't really have anyone to learn off.
I think another thing that perhaps as players get older, obviously they have young families, so that becomes a factor as well. He's travelled. I think he said, didn't he? He's travelled around the world. He's been quite selfish, understandably, but now he's got a young family and he's got perhaps thinking where he wants to settle with the house. Where the kids are going to go to school, all those sort of factors come into as well. Yeah.
And I think the thing for me is anyone that brings him in would be stupid not to bring him in as a coach as well. and to just say to him, we talk a lot about, like, if we're gonna bring in someone like Sam Lousy, let's bring him in to bring on the kids. We're gonna bring Jake Ball back in so that we can teach all the youngsters how to play like Jake Ball. Whether you've then got someone like Patch, why wouldn't you bring Patch back into your system and use him in exactly the same way? Just because he doesn't come from abroad, just because he's not a Tongan, just because he's not from New Zealand, kids can learn from him. Just watch what he does, watch how he holds himself, listen to the way he talks about the game. He talks really, really intelligently about the game, and you don't get that from many pros or former pros. You tend to get a lot of sound bites, and then when I was playing, we used to do this, and when I was playing, we used to do that. And you compare him with some of the other, experts that they have on television at the minute, and he's a mile ahead. So yeah, I think we all need to club together. We'll all throw our sandwiches in, and we'll all and then we'll draw hats, we'll draw straws, and whoever gets the longest straw gets Patch for the season, and we'll all give him our sandwiches as payment. Right. We were going to do an international season wrap up, gents, but I don't think any of us have really got the appetite for it, in all honesty. I think we'll save that for the summer bit. So we haven't actually decided if this is going to be our last pod before the summer or whatever. So we'll have a little chat off here, see how we want the summer kind of stuff to go. We will be back around the 2 tests, probably the week before, but I know I'm on holiday that week, and I have promised the wife that I am not bringing my laptop. So that might kind of throw a couple of issues in. When I say I've promised the wife, I mean I've agreed with her when she insisted that I'm not taking my laptop.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
We need to decide these plans though, because the first game's in like 4 weeks.
Yeah, so we may be back. we may be back next week, but more likely we will be back for the summer tests in Japan. It depends if the WRU screw anything up in between now and next week. Let's be honest. Yeah. What day? And have we got enough time to plan a pod in before? If they screw it up at 5 o'clock next Monday, that's pushing it. That's pushing it. But we've been there before, where there was a time where the WRU announced something while we were on air, and we spoke about it on air because Jamie had it on his phone. So yeah, things like that happen. Anyway, gentlemen, Dan, it is a pleasure to have you as part of the team on a permanent basis. So thank you once again, gentlemen. It has been an absolute pleasure this evening. Good to talk. Rugby has finished, but we will continue in one form or another through the summer. So all that we need to do now is to say thank you very much for your time and enjoy your rugby. Farewell, gents.
That's that.
Good night.
That's that.